Financial resolutions. Most people have them, but inflation can make it tough. I'm Brian Fry with the Motley Fool Ascent, and joining me today is Jack Capperell, our research lead. Jack, what's the number one financial resolution that most people have in 2023?
Brian, paying off debt is the top financial resolution for 2023. 53% of respondents that have a resolution said that paying off their debt is a top goal for this year. Other popular resolutions include saving for a financial milestone, like buying a house or saving for a wedding, building up an emergency fund, and increasing income.
And I'm going to take a wild guess here and say that inflation hasn't made it easy for people to pay off debt. We've seen consumers spending take a big hit. We've seen things like egg shortages and prices going crazy across the board. So how has that impacted financial resolutions?
Brian, that's right. 2022 was a difficult year for inflation. 80% of those with a financial resolution said they expected inflation to make it tough to keep their resolution. About 2/3 also said they're pessimistic about keeping their resolution because they think it'll just become too expensive. And the most common reason folks haven't been able to keep past financial resolutions is simply because it became too expensive. So this isn't necessarily a new problem, but it might be one that is a little bit compounded by inflation. The good news is that inflation is cooling. The rate of inflation has decreased when looking at it year over year for the past 6 months, although inflation overall is still relatively elevated from previous years.
It's certainly good to see that inflation is cooling off a bit. I'm curious how financial resolutions track across age groups. Do different generations prioritize different things? Like, do younger generations prioritize paying off debt more than older generations?
When it comes to debt by generation, it's actually the opposite of your guess, which surprised me as well. Older generations are more likely to have a resolution about paying off debt than younger generations. In fact, just 40% of Gen Zers said paying off debt is their top priority for the new year. Instead, we found that those younger generations, Gen Zers, millennials, they're most interested in, again, saving for a financial milestone or a large purchase. They want to invest more and they want to boost their income. The younger the generation, however, the less likely they are to prioritize saving for retirement. The group that was most interested in saving for retirement is baby boomers. Again, that's a little bit of a surprising result, I think, because you expect young folks to kind of prioritize that long-term goal, saving for retirement, and you'd think that hopefully baby boomers are just about ready for retirement, so it wouldn't be as much of a priority.
You know, that's interesting to me because we hear a lot in the media about financial literacy, young people and Gen Z, especially on TikTok and YouTube, making bad financial decisions, getting into bad debt, getting into credit card debt, using buy now, pay later services to pay for expenses that they may not be able to afford with their current budget. And given today's rising inflation, you found that Gen Z's highest priority isn't actually paying off debt. It's saving for a financial milestone, like a wedding or buying a house. Talk to me a little bit more about that.
All really interesting points that you've raised. I think it's a reflection of a couple of things. First, Gen Z has by far the least amount of debt overall. And that's likely just a reflection of their age and the fact that they're not in situations where they rack up a ton of debt. The oldest members of Gen Z are 26, so it's pretty unlikely that they have something like a mortgage or a big car loan. Maybe they have less student debt because those haven't kicked in yet, or they're co-signed with a parent, for example. So, the fact that paying off debt isn't Gen Z's highest priority might just be a reflection of the fact that they don't have a ton of debt relative to older Americans who've had more time to make those big purchases that come with a large amount of debt that kind of sticks around for a while. Second, yes, you raise buy now, pay later. Our own research shows that the average buy now, pay later payment is under $100 a month. So they're certainly using buy now, pay later. Younger generations are more likely to use buy now, pay later than older generations. But I think they're not likely to use buy now, pay later for huge purchases that would then build up a ton of debt, more likely to create revolving debt, late payments, etc., that kind of rack up over time. Third, you mentioned TikTok and YouTube and Instagram and financial influencers, it might just be that, Gen Z, they have so much exposure and access to financial information. Sometimes not the best financial information and the best advice, but certainly, more financial information and advice than I had when I was kind of, growing up and as a teenager. They might just be a little bit smarter about managing their money, and that could be reflected as them having less debt. And then, related to the first point that I made, where they're just a younger generation, they haven't made a ton of big purchases yet. They're at a stage where, Gen Z, they're at a stage where they're just starting their financial journey. They've been through years of economic uncertainty, right, between COVID and now inflation and concerns about a recession. So, saving should maybe for them rightly be top of mind.
We hear about young people struggling with this, especially high interest debt is super important to pay off early, right? Like if you're saving and you're also accumulating credit card debt or paying for other milestone purchases, you might not be actually saving as much as you think.
Brian, that's right. High interest debt, like credit card debt, some types of personal debt, it's incredibly important to pay that off first, because if you ignore high interest debt or you're kind of just making your minimum payment month to month, you can get cascading debt because the interest just becomes overwhelming, or you just become mired in debt for longer than you'd like because you're not making payments that contribute all that much to the principal. You're kind of just shaving off the interest and a little bit more every month. You're not really attacking the underlying debt. That said, saving is still important. You need that emergency fund in case there's a medical emergency, you become unemployed, another expense comes up like car maintenance or home maintenance, and you don't want your emergency fund to be entirely composed of credit. That just adds more debt. There's a saying that, your credit card is your last emergency fund. It's not really a mindset that you want to have. So it is about finding the right balance in your financial priorities. Speaking from experience, it's really difficult to do both at once. But, a little bit later, we'll talk about budgeting and steps that folks can take to kind of figure out that right balance.
Super important point about building an emergency fund. Often one of the first recommendations in a financial plan, often overlooked in a financial plan. We've seen a lot of people looking to save more with interest rates, looking to take advantage of high yield savings accounts, switching bank accounts to find the best savings rate. What steps are people taking to pay off debt?
Brian, about 3/4 of the respondents to our financial resolution survey said they'd use a budgeting app or another tool to help them keep their resolution. A fifth said that they'd use a financial advisor, and another fifth said they'd use an app to automate savings or investments. I prefer an all of the above approach for financial goals. Consolidate all of my accounts kind of into one view via an app. Make sure I have a good handle on my budget. That's the foundation of reaching any financial goal, is kind of understanding where you're at financially. And then third, automate. It just takes so much micromanagement and stress out of reaching financial goals.
I love all of those points, especially the automation point. I used to use a spreadsheet too. It actually became too unwieldy with too much information. So I did switch to a budgeting app. There's quite a few great ones out there, but there is no one size fits all approach when it comes to financial goals and budgeting. It's all about trying out what works best for you. Jack, thanks so much for joining me today. And for our viewers out there, if you're interested in learning more about the Motley Fool Sense financial resolutions research, Jack, where can you find that?
You can check out our full study in the link below. And if you have a financial resolution, let us know in the comments as well.
Great. Thanks so much for joining us, Jack.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
Thanks for watching.